I'm John, and this is Alex, and this is the cold open of Dorktown. But wait, there's more. Today is the Houston Rockets episode of Dorktown. This is one that had been on your plate for a while, right?
For quite a long time. High hopes for it.
Yeah, and in the middle of it, the Rockets went and did something. But first, let's talk about their three-point shooting. Here's a basketball court. Here's the three-point line. They kind of drew it weird, didn't they? Out here, it's 23 feet and 9 inches from the basket. But over here in the corners, it's only 22 feet, almost a full 2 feet shorter. Which actually, probably coincidentally, makes a lot of sense. If you shoot from the side, you don't have the backboard to aim at, so the slightly shorter distance is kind of a consolation prize. Anyway, here's how often the Rockets shot from each distance during the 2017-2018 season. They shoot threes, and then they shoot from way up close, and that is almost all they ever do. If you tried to hike this, they'd have to send a helicopter to come and get you. This is really only an acceleration of what the NBA is more or less doing these days. I dug up some data from a chart party I did a couple years ago that showed shot distance data from across the league. Generally it looks the same, but while the rest of the league allows itself to try some long two-pointers, the Rockets completely refuse to do that. Look at their threes. Distance clearly doesn't bother them at all. While it's possible to take a three from as short as 22 feet away, Houston's favorite shot is from 25 to 26 feet. They even like the unreasonably long threes. Look at this craziness. The Rockets attempted 215 shots from 28 to 29 feet away. That's way, way out there. Meanwhile, they only attempted 210 shots from the 4 to 5 foot distance. They would rather shoot from way out there than way up here. That is awesome. Alex, as long as we're on the subject, I once hit a shot from 8 feet away.
I got you. I hit a free throw before. In the 2017-2018 season, the Rockets became the first team to ever take more shots from three-point land than two-point land. There's a decent chance you already knew that, but what you may not know is how much deeper than that it really goes. As recently as January 19th, 2014, there had been only 7 games in NBA history in which a team took more threes than twos. When Mike D'Antoni joined Houston in June 2016, that number was at 27. Even if you disregard the league's 15-year feeling out period of the three-point line, that's 27 out of a possible 51,726 games, which is about 1/20th of 1% of the time. The Rockets in D'Antoni's first 2 seasons did so in 62 out of a possible 164 games, which is about 37.8% of the time. If we just isolate that time frame for an apples-to-apples era comparison, we see that every other NBA team combined for 36 such games. The Rockets nearly doubled the rest of the NBA. But this is my favorite. None of these teams have had a single game in their entire history taking more threes than twos. The Rockets did 8 times in December 2017 what 13 teams have combined to do 0 times ever.
I'm going to do the rest of the episode from 22 feet away. You know why? Because I have Rockets fever.
Of course, they weren't just good at taking long-range shots. They were pretty good at making them too, at least before the 2018 Western Conference Finals rolled around, but we'll get there in a sec. So in each of D'Antoni's first 2 seasons, the Rockets hit 15-plus treys in at least half their games. No one else has even done so in even a third of their games. Back to using a single calendar month to compare him to everyone else. In November 2017, the Rockets nailed at least 15 threes in a dozen games. 16 teams, literally the majority of the NBA, have never had an entire season with that many games knocking down at least 15 threes. But just as stunning is the incredible streak they put together throughout most of the 2017-2018 season. Starting October 25th, the Rockets drained double-digit threes in every single game through February 25th. A 55-game streak that's pretty impressive when you consider that no one else has ever had one last even half as long. That's what happens when you got an unprecedented supply of shooting spearheaded by the first pair of teammates in 27 years to each average at least 7 assists a night.
So Alex, the sad part of the episode is finally here.
The basketball gods did not always smile down upon Houston, apparently.
When we started this episode, this was supposed to be a happy, cool episode like the rest of them. Alex, did you see this coming when you decided this is what we were going to do?
Not in a million years.
Well, let's get to it. In the 7-game 2018 Western Conference Finals, the Rockets attempted 277 three-pointers. The regular season three-point percentage was .362. At that rate, 277 attempts would result in exactly 100 threes. Through the first 4 games, Houston was just about keeping pace with this projection. In Game 5, they came just a tiny bit loose, but there was no cause for alarm. After all, it was a game they'd won. Neither was Game 6 a huge concern in the three-point department. If this is your team, and if God loves you, you probably end here. You've shot .344 from beyond the arc so far this series, which, with this quantity of attempts, would give you 95 three-pointers for the series. In Game 7, the Rockets are well on their way there. And then, halfway through the second quarter, it just stops. It doesn't hit a snag, it doesn't trail off, it just completely flatlines. It's dead. The Rockets missed 27 consecutive threes, a stat that will be parroted throughout the entire offseason and until the end of time. It's just that unbelievable. There's no explanation. That season, the Rockets had committed to the three like no other team in NBA history. It carried them to the best regular season record in the NBA, to the Western Conference Finals, and to Game 7, the most important game they had played in 23 years. That these Rockets would miss 27 straight at any point in the season seems wildly improbable. For it to happen now is one of the cruelest fates I can possibly imagine. Here we see the data a little differently. This is a second-by-second timeline of the Rockets' net three-pointers throughout the series. That it trends downward is not an issue because of course you're going to miss more threes than you make, but this is almost frightening to look at. Throughout literally half the game, the Rockets' three-point ability was an uninterrupted free-fall. Take in this silent horror. Despite missing, they just kept trying at the same aggressive pace they always did. But then, once they finally hit one, they stopped trying. This at a time when they needed threes the most. Why were they three happy when they kept missing, and three averse the second they made one? It's as though they were trying to exorcise a demon, and nothing more. The Rockets lost their most important game in decades by 9 points. If just 4 of those 27 misses had found their way in, it's 12 points right there. I'm not even a Rockets fan, and after reflecting on that, I want to go directly to bed. It's only 5:30. Still want to go to bed. Alex, can you end us with something happy?
I'll do my best. I do want to focus for just a sec on James Harden. During his time in Houston, he's been perhaps the most efficient volume scorer of all time, especially when it comes to fellow guards. If you look at just backcourt players who carried a significant scoring burden by taking at least 15 shots a game, Harden's efficiency is through the roof. There have been 8 instances of a guard carrying that big a load and still averaging at least 1.5 points per shot. Reggie Miller did it once. Kevin Martin did it once. Steph Curry did it once. And then James Harden has done it 5 times. Plus, his seasons have a leg up on the others since he never missed over 30 games, and he always comfortably cleared that minimum shot qualifier. Now let's focus for a minute on Harden just under D'Antoni. Across their first 2 seasons together, Harden averaged nearly 30 points and 10 assists a game, with an effective field goal percentage north of 53. I like effective field goal percentage much better than regular field goal percentage because it gives you 1.5 times as much credit for making a 3 as opposed to a 2. And since 3 is 2 times 1.5, the math checks out, don't worry. Anyway, no other player has had a 2-year stretch maintaining averages that high, and virtually no one's even all that close. Chop each of those marks down to 25, 8, and 50. That's a significant reduction across the board that still only one man, LeBron James, has ever reached across back-to-back seasons. Not a bad buffer to have separating you from everyone else.
Welcome to almost the end of this episode. Please like and subscribe to SB Nation and tune in for more episodes of Dorktown. Welcome to the very end of this episode.